Mr. McMahon famously once said on an episode of Raw, "I don't ask fans what they want, I tell them what they want. I tell them what they want, and then they like it." But then again, he also once said, "Come on, God, let's get jiggy with it," so there is that. All I'm saying is, just because they put the corporate machine behind something doesn't mean we have to take it. With that in mind, I'm Adam Wilborn from What Culture, and these are 10 times wrestling fans completely rejected what they were seeing. Number 10, Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar. Back in 2004, in the lead up to WrestleMania 20, Bill Goldberg wasn't interested in signing a contract extension, thanks to that Triple H, and neither was WWE. Brock Lesnar, meanwhile, handed his notice into WWE a week before the event to pursue a career in the NFL. These circumstances made the Mania crowd at Madison Square Garden that night hate this match before it even began. It was 15 minutes of Goldberg and Lesnar locking up and trying not to get distracted with deafening "You Sold Out," the "Hey Hey Goodbye" song, boring chants, and "This match sucks." After Lesnar lost, he angrily stuck up his middle fingers to the crowd too. Straight back at you, buddy. Number 9, Roman Reigns versus Samoa Joe. Oof, the crowd shunned this match as soon as the bell rang. At the time, Roman Reigns was at his peak of being rammed down fans' throats. He was dealing with the same polarizing headliner reaction that John Cena rode out for years in WWE. His storylines with The Authority, Brock Lesnar, and Braun Strowman hadn't been well received for the way he was booked throughout them as a Superman-like savior. WWE programmed Reigns into a feud with Joe post-WrestleMania 34, which concluded at Backlash. Fans heavily booed Reigns throughout, drowning out the light cheers he garnered. The Backlash crowd, guess what, also chanted "boring" and "CM Punk," with lots of fans even leaving before or as soon as Reigns hit Joe with the spear to pick up the win. Number 8, Seth Rollins versus The Fiend. Ooh, where to begin with this one? It literally broke me. The red lighting, 11 sodding curb stomps, and the finish, that hat on a hat on a hat of a finish. Fans booed, chanted bullshit, refund, restart the match, and AEW as #cancel WWE Network trended worldwide. The fact Bray and Seth's Hell in a Cell match, a concept originally conceived to end long-time feuds in climactic extreme violence, ended in a DQ, was even more of a slap in the face to everyone who watched it. Number 7, Batista versus Big Show. ECW re-emerged under the WWE banner in 2006, signing to air a weekly show on the Sci-Fi Network. The new ECW ran into many obstacles in their first few months, like their world champion Rob Van Dam getting arrested for drug possession alongside another beloved fan favourite Sabu, as well as their major acquisition Kurt Angle battling addiction issues that would soon lead him to exit the company. As a result of all this, Big Show was quickly promoted to winning the ECW World Championship. Oh good! On the August 1st show, they had the Animal Batista go up against Big Show at the original ECW's old stomping grounds, the Hammerstein Ballroom in New York City. Fans in the ballroom that night loathed this match and its wrestlers. They jeered them both, and WWECW never returned to the ballroom to run an event after this calamity. Number 6, Drew Gulak. The most famous angle Drew Gulak participated in for CZW drew a heavy amount of criticism. It revolved around King of American Hardcore Nick Gage, CZW's brutal deathmatch competitor. Gage outside the ring became addicted to OxyContin and other painkillers in 2010, becoming homeless and desperately needing money to feed his addiction. He committed second-degree robbery and was later sentenced to jail for 5 years. Drew Gulak's gimmick was a crusader against violence in Combat Zone Wrestling at the time, but he took it a step too far at one show. 7 days after Gage was arrested, Drew Gulak showed up at a CZW event dressed as Gage and mocked him. A large portion of fans there that night did not appreciate this parody, with front row fans even turning their back on him and irritably sticking their middle fingers up at the time. I love him, but it's safe to say Gulak never drew a reaction close to this on 205 Live. Number 5. Christopher Daniels versus Sean Morley. In the second match of TNA's Genesis pay-per-view, Sean Morley beat Christopher Daniels clean with his money shot finisher. This did not sit well with crowdgoers that night, who actually turned their backs on Morley as he had his hand raised in victory. You see, TNA had just started the Hogan-Bischoff era, but straight away they were accused of just bringing in former WWE wrestlers who were at one time over, from Mr. Anderson, Ric Flair and Jeff Hardy to the Nasty Boys, Orlando Jordan, and yes, Sean Morley. It felt like Daniels and other TNA originals were just being cast aside for whatever Hogan and Bischoff thought would work. TNA followers viewed the former Val Venus as just another ex-WWF talent dug up from the Attitude Era. And what about the Attitude Era? Turns out it didn't work. His run in TNA came to an abrupt end in March 2010. Number 4. Batista. Batista's long-awaited return to WWE after conquering Hollywood happened in the beginning of 2014. He Batista-bombed Alberto Del Rio on Raw to re-debut, and 6 days later entered himself into the Royal Rumble. It was, it's fair to say, bad timing for the animal to return around this event. The pay-per-view was held in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, a notoriously difficult city to get a good reception in. At the time, a movement was building with Daniel Bryan, more of him later. Bryan wrestled in the first match at the Royal Rumble in a losing effort to Bray Wyatt, with the crowd-loving Bryan and the Yes movement in full effect. Even though he was never advertised for it, the hostile crowd expected Bryan to be one of the entrants, given the momentum he was riding at the time. So when the final number 30 entrant turned out to be my best friend Rey Mysterio, yeah, they booed him out of the building. And when Batista won, they booed him out of the goddamn city. Number 3. Roman Reigns. For the second year in a row, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania was chosen as the city to host the Royal Rumble, and for a second year in a row, the city relentlessly booed the ending to the Rumble. The Rumble crowd that night was already worked up by fan favourite Daniel Bryan getting eliminated early on in the match. Reigns won the Rumble by spearing Rusev and throwing him over the top rope, and that garnered a, heavily negative reaction from the crowd. It was a staggering reception, given the most popular wrestler in the world, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, just so happened to stop by and make a surprise run-in at the event to help Reigns win when he was being attacked by Big Show and Kane. Yet the crowd still extremely disliked Reigns. I mean, look at Rock's bloody face here. The poor bastard. Number 2. Sting versus Abyss. When my mortal enemy Vince Russo was signed to TNA in 2006 to be part of creative, fans and critics alike didn't take too kindly to the segments that followed on Impact and on pay-per-views. This was very much evident at their Destination X event, where a last rites match was booked between Sting and Abyss. The rules for this new concept were competitors must call for the deathbed to be lowered from high above the ring, and then have to place their opponent inside of it and slam it shut, sending it to the ceiling. As soon as the ring announcer read aloud the rules, fans knew this match was going to be grim to sit through. In the match, when Abyss called for the deathbed to be lowered, fans immediately started chanting, "Fire Russo, good point." Sting picked up the win after shoving Abyss in the deathbed, and Sting in the script was supposed to be raised atop of the coffin too, to sell the beating he just went through, but the referee awkwardly had to tell him that this was a no-go because production staff quickly found out they couldn't raise the deathbed with that much weight. Oh, and let's not forget the very next pay-per-view lockdown during the electrified 6 sides of steel cage match between Team 3D and LAX, where the lights in the arena would flicker whenever a wrestler made contact with the cage because they were meant to be getting electrocuted. Number 1. Bo Dallas. Bo Dallas got a lot of, let's say, apathetic hostility from the local Florida crowds when competing in NXT. NXT tried to push Bo as a crowd-pleasing babyface, but fans were quick to reject him every time they did. At the start of 2013, fans turned on him in a big way. It escalated when he defeated Big E Langston for the NXT Championship. Bo regrettably came across as a goof, not a champion. The NXT supporters wanted nothing to do with Bo at the time, with him often being compared to having go-away heat or, and I'm not going to do it. I'm not calling it X-Pac heat. We like X-Pac here at What Culture. He had go-away heat, alright, not X-Pac heat. We like X-Pac. The levels of The levels of disinterested dislike they showed him had rarely been seen in modern-day wrestling. Fans resented him for getting a bigger push than other deserving wrestlers on the roster at the time, like Sami Zayn or Neville. His later move to Raw with the obnoxious Bo Leave gimmick was inspired by the extreme dislike he got in NXT from the fans. And that's our list. Did we miss any out? Let us know in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And subscribe to What Culture Wrestling on either iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from for daily wrestling podcasts. Plus, you can let us know your thoughts on Twitter at WhatCultureWWE. Watch there, follow me at Adam Wilborn, and I'll see you soon.